again. It's Atlanta Discuss. Yes, we're here again. We always bring to you erudite scholars, juicy topics, something that always affect mankind one way or the other. But here we have a soft spot for Nigeria. And the reasons are not always far-fetched. The largest concentration of Black people on the planet is not a country you ignore, considering the fact that nothing really might be going well for the country. In the past, we have discussed weak countries, collapsed country, failed country. So there's a lot going on in the continent of Africa. This year is very interesting. Election in Ghana, so many other parts of the world, even in India. But there, Nigeria has to get it right. That's why we are talking about State of the Nation. This is part 2 in the series of 5. And we have another fantastic and erudite scholar, someone that's been there, done it all, seen it all, especially when it comes to the Diaspora contingent organization. She just fits the billing. She's true to power, and she says it the way it is. So, State of the Power Part 2, our guest is Jumoke Akin. Jumoke, welcome to Atlanta Discuss.
Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you.
All right. So, Jumoke, I'm sure a lot of our followers will have heard about her and know her, but it's always fair to introduce our guest. And Jumoke is a certified project management professional, PMP. She is a design build professional, that's a DBIA, and a certified construction manager. So clearly, she's a scholar. So she's also a CMMA trainer and an adjunct faculty at the Alma Mater School of Engineering. So clearly, she fits the billing. She knows her onions in that regard. She currently serves as the second vice president of the Tri-Africa Empowerment Foundation, overseeing administration and finance operations for the organization. I mean, she's transparent. That's what we like here. A founding member and executive director of Rebuild Nigeria Initiative, RNI. Yes, that's also impressive. Jumoke also served on the Construction Management Association of America, that is CMAA, which I mentioned earlier on, the National Board of Directors, and a three terms as chair of the Owners Committee of the same CMAA, that's Northern California Board of Directors. Currently, she serves on the Design Build Institute of America's National Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, National Awards Jury, which is part of what I just read out, and Western Pacific Education Committee. Yeah, long appellation, but I'm sure you all get that. She holds a BSc in Civil and Construction Engineering and Masters in Construction Management. Jumoke Akin, welcome to Atlanta Discuss. I also have to add that she also served as the first chairman of the Mobilization Committee for NIDO Americas for 2 terms. So, I mean, when you say mobilization, that means you can put people together. That's impressive. Also serve as global coordinator for Diaspora Day with my good friend, Honorable Jumoke in Belgium. So, Jumoke feels the billion true to power. Jumoke, we welcome you to Atlanta Discuss. 7 continents of the world, 7 billion people that are listening to you, and everybody have what you want to say. State of the nation. What nation are we talking about? We know it's Nigeria. I've been accused of having a bias towards Nigeria. My excuses are not just one excuse. The largest concentration of Black people in the world is working very behind schedule and needs attention. So my first question to you is this. A lot of uncertainty in the land. It doesn't look like Nigeria has really gotten it well from independence and all that. The ship of state looks almost rudderless. The exchange rate is spiraling out of control. Nothing seems to be going well. The nation seems weak and collapsing. We don't want to know what is going to happen after that. So one of the reasons why we do what we do is to avoid things really getting out of hand. So let me put it to you this way. How did Nigeria get to where it is today?
That's a tough question because it wasn't something that happened overnight. And I'm just going to speak as an everyday Nigerian that is really concerned about where we are, where we're coming from. And it has been a steady decline. I don't know that we paid attention to it or we took all the necessary precautions to stop this free flow. I always call it the bleeding. The bleeding started a long time ago, and like most of us that grew up in the 60s, some people they disagree with me when I say Nigeria walked. Nigeria worked in the sense that we got good education. The system worked to a certain extent. We had a strong middle class family. We had civil servants, if you remember, permanent secretaries, and we had people that helped kind of implement projects that worked in Nigeria. And just to be very direct, I think the erosion of our values and culture probably started about 40 years ago when it became money, prosperity, and it became all that you can possess. Your blessing was not quantified in terms of financial or the funds you had, as opposed to the quality or the integrity of who you were as a person. And in Yoruba, they say in your lasho, or it's like your people, your name is your wealth, and you just your values it was your wealth, or that's how we were brought up. But all of a sudden, I think it's that status, financial thing that kind of started eroding all the values of integrity and righteousness. That's when the steady decline started. And after that, it's been a free fall for all. It used to be just a sect, but now it became the entire society. And as we talk more, we like to point fingers at a certain group of people and say it's the politicians that are corrupt. But I think we need to look at the entire sphere, all forms of leadership, not just the political leaders. Every group, whether it's the family, the leadership in the family, religious leaders, traditional leaders, community leaders, you name it. We need to start taking responsibility for how we got to where we are.
Oh, wow. When you were talking, there was something you said that there's a word you used that really caught my attention. You said prosperity. So I know, I grew up in Nigeria then. I know when Pentecostalism came into Nigeria full-fledged, the key cardinal word there while preaching was prosperity. So I want to ask you do you think the church, to a large extent, I agree the traditional institution has played a very terrible role, but do you think the church also has a fault in how we got to where we are today?
And as a Christian, and I'm just going to be very honest, yes, I do. I think largely so. And I remember, in terms of, I labor over Nigeria in prayers, and there was a particular day I was praying about Nigeria, and my God just reminded me about the 15th century, to research the 15th century and the role of the church in the 15th century. That was the word that I got. And so I didn't really know too much about the role of the church in the 15th century. So I went and I Googled the role of the church in the 15th century. And I realized that this set the standard for leadership, for communities. And if you look at a lot of the institutions that were built, that are still standing today, they were built by the church. So the society looked to the church for leadership, and that's where it came. So the society was built on values, on integrity, on fear, and and I'm not saying that there wasn't corruption back then. I'm sure there was, but largely it was very communal. It was communal benefit. The effort was for developing the community. The people as a society, and we see the effect of that. They set the laws and the guidance, and they guided politicians and kind of became the moral compass for the society. And I think I wasn't here in the 15th century, but it worked to a larger extent, because we can see some of those institutions are still standing today. So I would say yes. I don't want to put it solely on Christianity. I think religion, the religious leaders have a great role, because people listen to them more than anyone else. And I think they have the ear of the people, and they had the opportunity to help instill those values, the love for one another and responsibility, to building the society?
So if I understand you very well, our religious leader, both Islamic and Christian, have not been true to power. And if I understand it from my own viewpoint also, I think that are they direct beneficiaries of the corruption that is happening? Is that why they're being economical with the truth? Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know that. I don't know that I can say that, and I don't know that I can limit it to just the Christian and the Islamic leaders, religious leaders that have influence on the masses, that can get the attention or command the respect and honor of the people in whatever capacity they are. And I would tell I always I have this joke that people will probably listen to their pastor before they listen to Jesus Christ. If Christ was standing next to a pastor and he said something, chances are they're going to defer to the pastor. And it's the same thing with all religions, because there's a lot of emphasis of honor on the religious leaders, and we reverence them because we see them as representative of God. And so that honor and reverence is given to them. That's why I feel that they can help set the tone. And if you look at the very big churches and, how it's like, God forbid you to try to correct or say something about a father or a mother, and, you probably can get stoned for that. And the same thing with Islam. If you say anything negative about a prophet, it's like a death sentence automatically. So that's the kind of influence and command they have on people. And I think it could be used more positively. It could be used to really help build us as a society and hold us accountable for wrong behavior. Really hold us accountable for wrong behavior.
All right. Well, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And I also think the traditional institution, especially our traditional rulers, are playing, the ostrich also, because one of my guests did mention that when even people want to challenge our political office holders, it's usually the religious leaders and especially the main couple, the traditional institution, who always come in between and try to calm people down because they're on the take. And I think one of the reasons for that is that I think a lot of our traditional institutions are being paid at this constitutional, some stipend by government, and a lot of them are also appointed by government. So it's almost impossible for them to be true to power. But having said that, Nigeria has a new government. That emanated from a very shabbily conducted election. I'm sure the beneficiaries of the election agree to that, even though they don't say it publicly. And nobody is actually happy about the way the last election was conducted. 350 billion naira in budgets, excluding monies that came from America, European Union, and wherever. More than half of the money was supposed to go to technology. The technology, of course, we didn't see. So now the government is trying, they are saying so much, but nothing is really working economically. In the diplomatic front, Nigeria despite being the largest concentration of Black people, is not faring well in ECOWAS. About 3-4 countries have, withdrawn from ECOWAS. Nothing, technically speaking, is going well. But the question really is, do you think President Bola Tinubu has done anything that is commendable so far?
I'm going to answer your question. I don't know if I can answer it directly, but let's also talk about accountability. You started to talk about that we can't hold the political leaders accountable because there is intervention from the traditional leaders. And we're going back to the same thing. We keep pointing fingers at only one sect of leaders, and we forget where leadership actually starts from and where accountability starts from. If we hold each other accountable, if as a spouse, I can hold my spouse accountable for poor action or irresponsible behavior, that sets the tone for the entire society. So it's not just that the traditional leaders are not holding the political leaders accountable, is we as Nigerians, we're not holding each other accountable. And I think that's where we're really missing it. We don't hold each other accountable. We don't hold ourselves accountable for our poor decisions and our poor action, and we'll rather point it to just one set of people. And that's where I'm coming from. We don't hold the madam that ill-treats the maid. We don't hold her accountable. We don't hold the oga that leaves the driver in the car for 8 hours in sizzling heat. We don't hold him accountable. So why would now that same person that was that had microaggression at a very low level and it started to build up, how are you now going to hold them accountable when every step of the way there was no need to, or never had a need to be held accountable? So that's part of the challenges that we have. And then to your point, President Tinubu has been in office now, about in less than a year. I'm not a fan, because again, the election was probably one of the worst in history, and Nigerians have kind of resigned themselves. Well, it is what it is. Let's just accept it and move on. And that's another problem that I have. We accept everything, and it's like, well, we'll just wait. We don't really stand for values and integrity. We don't, and I think the political class kind of understands the nature of Nigerians, that they're going to make a little bit of noise and then they're going to go back and we're just going to continue to do what we're doing. That's on one part. But we also forget that President Tinubu is the president. We don't hold governors accountable. We don't hold local government officials accountable. We don't hold the community leaders accountable. So maybe we should start at the grassroots level, right? So we have 774 local government.
Yes, yes, you're correct.
So are we looking at what each of these sectors are doing? What is your local government area doing? What is their budget? What is their plan for your community, for your local government area? How many of us even know what is happening in our local government areas, the projects that have been earmarked for the budget that was allocated to the local government? We keep looking at President Tinubu. He's not going to run everything. I'm not a fan of his. I'm really not a fan of that administration because of the way the election that was conducted. But I have to be very objective, right? He's not going to come from Abuja and run Ikeja local government area, or these are all allocated. So if everyone functions in their office with responsibility, with integrity, then maybe you won't have an issue. Maybe you won't have a problem. And look at the latest scandal. I was asking about that, the Beta Edu scandal. I haven't heard anything about it. Nigerians, we've kept quiet now, right? It was like, when it first happened, it was like, but no one has written to EFCC to follow up on what's going on. Well, maybe some organizations are doing, but we're not making enough noise. We're not paying enough attention to this is to make sure that it remains in view for the world to see, so that it's resolved. We've moved on to the next one, and that's part of the issue. So I don't see, I can't point to anything this administration has done right, but I don't live in Nigeria. But I think I'm more in Nigeria than just even because I'm very involved, and the stories that I hear, I don't know that I can even repeat it without being emotional. It's a daily. I probably spend more than 50% of my waking moment dealing with Nigeria. That's the real truth.
Oh, wow. That shows you're clearly a patriot. So, Bob, one of the reasons why I asked you that question is, here at Atlanta Discourse, we also have an opinion. That's why it's a discourse, Yeah. I was trying to look at what the president has done right. I was looking at foreign policy. I remember the late President Yaradua, when he came in, the election was, another very horrible one. He accepted that the election that brought him in was very, faulty and all that. Something I felt President Tinubu should have also, gone through and all said. but he didn't know. So I was trying to look at what he's done possibly economy, and I really could not lay my hands on anything. And when you talk about achievement, you're not just talking policy, you're talking how it affects the people and all that. But that's that. It is what it is, like you always say. So, but what we have concluded here is, in our editorial level, that it does look like Nigerians are inherently dishonest people, which is not a fair thing to say. It's like a blanket thing. But based on what you said, when you look at a trickle-down effect, the governors are there, the local governments are there, nobody's putting the checks and balances. Why should everybody just keep quiet? So we did a quick study of like everybody that is even poor today, they have hope that one day, I'll be a councillor, I'll be a local government. My time will come to job. My time will come to do this. It's more like a turn-by-turn Nigeria Limited kind of thing. So, so when you even have something truthful to say, your parents, your church, your traditional, let's say, relax, this, that. So I do agree with what you're saying, but it does look like there's inherent dishonesty in the land, which is not fair to say 100% of Nigerians are, but there's a negligible percentage that will try and stay true to power, but it is a negligible percentage. You're a diaspora. What role do you think the diaspora contingent, which you have been part of for a very long time, I know you're doing a lot, but what role do you think the diaspora contingent can play in the recalibration of Nigeria and other guys?
So you said something about Nigerians, the Nigerians in Nigeria and the Nigerians in the diaspora are the same. Yeah, that's the truth, right? I think the reason Nigerians in the diaspora do not conduct themselves without or they maintain law and order is because the environment is very strict and kind of supports them to maintain law and order. And I know a lot of Nigerians in the diaspora that has gone back to Nigeria, and you will not believe that they were the same ones that obeyed the laws and did things with integrity outside Nigeria. And I'm really surprised at a few of them. And I've lost a few friends because I expected much more. So I bring it back to that same, what role can they play if we are honest with ourselves? If maybe we can give up that self-importance, and I was a little embarrassed because I sent you all my titles because that's who we are. For us to take ourselves seriously, it has to be doctor, chief, and the titles go on and on and on. And that becomes what validates us. That becomes what makes us important, our status, our money. And that's why we do all the things we do. And it's the same thing with Nigerians in the diaspora. We've been trying to do this now for years. And you get Nigerians together and everybody's excited. We're working for communal benefit we're making personal sacrifices and we're really making headway. And then if you pull the rug on you for what they can get or for themselves, their own personal benefit. I think I was sharing with you, we had an opportunity in the early 2000s to work with the American Jewish Committee for us to really be a protege. They wanted to mentor the Nigerian diaspora on what it is to have advocacy in our adopted countries or in our new countries, and to be able to help advocate for policies that would support the development, the progress and advancement of our country of birth. And we did. And we also had opportunity with a couple of other U.S. organizations that were really interested in supporting the Nigerian diaspora. And I can't tell you how many calls I will get from our Caucasian friends or these other communities to say, well, Jumoke, someone called me and was proposing something. And it went on and on and on. While we were coming as a community, people were going behind our backs to get what they felt they could get for themselves. And so that fell through the cracks. Because it became, where do you start? Who do you work with? Who do you work with? Who is not going to bring their own personal agenda or their tribal agenda or their family agenda to the table and really look at it that this is the Nigerians in diaspora? If we had that, a lot of the foreign policies that benefit the global community at the detriment of Nigeria will not happen. It will not, because we would be there advocating. Just you can see it with the Indian diaspora, all the other diaspora communities, even the Chinese diaspora. You can't. I'm here in San Francisco. There was a conference, an Asian economic conference, and the Asian diaspora came together to really protest some of the things that were happening. It was impressive that they came together as a community to influence some of the policies that were not working for their home countries, and they united. We don't do that. Nigerians, we will not do that. I have a couple of friends that are lobbyists in Washington that are Nigerians, and my question is like, why would you go lobby for what you know benefits the US but does not benefit Nigeria? And it's what they're paid to do, right? You don't go in as a patriot, as a Nigerian, looking for the good of your country. It's a job, and it's the money you're going to make. And what are you going to do with that money? Probably oppress some more people and, drive the big car, live in the fancy house, and everybody's hailing you or something. That's I don't know where that came from. I don't know if I really don't know where that status consciousness came from, that you have to belong to this elitist club or this group of people. That's what is happening with the diaspora community as well, that I've seen so far. And I can go on and on. I get very heartbroken about that, but I'm hoping we can change that as we move forward.
Well, the way everybody sees it, everybody I've spoken to, and the way I see it is that the diaspora contingent has a strategic role to play in the future of Nigeria. And it's also clear from what you're saying, from what a lot of us have said that there's really no coordination, that people back home, the selfishness is as much in the diaspora contingent as much as at home. So which makes the light at the end of the tunnel is not really there, actually. It's that be the case, You give the example of India and China, I'll add the Philippines. They've been very strategic in recalibrating, creating a regard for their country. So why is tribe? Diasporas are clearly, maybe not all are overwhelmingly educated, but education and enlightenment, they're two separate things. But why do you think tribe and possibly religion play a strategic role, even in the way people that are domiciled in first world country reason?
I don't know. I've wondered that myself, because I've gotten invitation to whether it's the Yoruba or the Edo, and I usually refuse. But I usually refuse to join any ethnic association, not because I'm not proud of my heritage, but I want to see myself as a Nigerian first, right? Because that's who I am. I can't really tell you why we are so sectional in even in the churches. Even if you go to Nigerian churches here, everyone has their sect, right? It's the Yoruba parapol, the Igbo parapol, even in the churches in America. So I don't know that I have the answer to that question, but I also wanted to touch on something you said, that there is scope for us as the diasporans to contribute to the progress and advancement of Nigeria if there is partnership and collaboration with Nigerians in Nigeria. It has to be a partnership, equal partnership. It has to be collaborative. And I don't know that exists just yet. Because if you talk to if you talk to those that go on mission trips and like medical mission, education, the kind of hurdles they have to cross or they have to deal with to volunteer their time, to give their resources to benefit the country is alarming. I remember one time NIDO, when I was in NIDO, this was during the cholera. We collected the cholera medicines. The pharmacists, Nigerian pharmacists, donated, and we paid for someone to take the boxes home. This was during the flooding in Nigeria. I think this was in 2008, 2009. And on getting the shipload of all these drugs, we didn't know that we had to go through NDLA and all that. And it was bribe this, bribe that, bribe this, bribe that. So this is someone that left California with boxes they had donated. And the frustration was with our counterparts in Nigeria looking for payout, for us to be able to, for them to be able to distribute what was donated from here. So there's that, as much as Nigerians in the diaspora want to try, that frustration comes when we don't meet willing partners that can make it easy for you to do what you plan to do. I was speaking with a medical doctor that was doing training with medical doctors in Nigeria as well. The same thing. He had the same issue where in speaking to some of the bigger guys, they were looking for what was it in it for themselves, for him to be able to conduct training for the younger medical doctors. So it goes on and on and on. So there has to be that conducive environment. There has to be collaboration between those at home and understanding that this is for mutual or communal benefit without expecting anything in return. Maybe if we can get to that point, we'll be able to accomplish the full participation of Nigerians in the diaspora and contributing to Nigeria.
Okay, let's talk about NIDO for a minute. I mean, I know you've served as chairman of the first mobilization chairman for NIDO Americas, and I'm also a member, and you did it for 2 terms. And you also mentioned it now. Do you think NIDO is that vehicle that can, organize Nigerian diaspora to do what they need to do? I mean, I know there's a NIDO desk in almost Nigeria embassy. There is supposed to be. If there's none, I know it was created by President Obasanjo to do the needful. I'm not sure if the needful is being done. I know there's a lot of disunity in NIDO, but do you think, let me rephrase now, if NIDO is well-oiled, well-lubricated, do you think it can be that purpose vehicle to do the needful for the country?
NIDO was structured and set up to be that. If people can get themselves out of the way and put the interests of the community ahead of their personal gain, yes, it could.
So what do you mean structured and get themselves out of the way?
If you look at the structure of NIDO, and it worked, when I mentioned that when Sir Collins and I, as the mobilization chair, it was basically preaching the gospel of NIDO, the need for us to come together and collaborate with our different expertise, come to the table and help reverse the brain drain, whether it's having position statements, recommendations on the different sectors. That's how it was set up, right? That the different professionals would have an input. So, for example, the medical group, I don't want to just call them the doctors, whether it was the Association of Nigerian Physicians, the nurses, they would have an opportunity to contribute, kind of do a gap analysis of the health sector, and then offer recommendations, and then also see how they could come in to help implement some of these suggestions, whether it's providing oversight or actually being boots on the ground to help based on their expertise. So we had that with healthcare, we had that with education, we had that with infrastructure, I think, and energy, economy, all these different groups. And even the Diaspora Day, when NNVS started the Diaspora Day, this is how it was set up. So it wasn't all the organizations that participated were not members of NIDO, but they were collaborators with NIDO. So AMPA will collaborate with NIDO. The Nigerian physicians, the Nigerian pharmacists will collaborate with NIDO. The Nigerian Legal Lawyers Association. So there was that collaboration, and NIDO was the the coordinator, and they had the different sectors where all this organization would offer their expertise. And NNVS then took it a step further and then had partnership with the state government. So if you were an indigene of Osun State and you had like a medical mission, then you coordinated through that, and then you go to Osun State. So that worked. I think it worked until NNVS went away, and I think President Obasanjo's government, another government came in, and there wasn't continuity on how that was established, because again, there is that personal agenda that comes into it. So that's why I said that if we followed the structure, how it was structured, then it definitely would have worked, because it was working for some years. It was working for some years.
Interesting. So the way I see it, I mean, because I'm a member of NIDO too, I actually think that Nigeria has a very large number of professionals all over the world, especially in America. And I've observed that most of them are not having anything to do with NIDO. I've spoken to a couple of them, and they say, no, NIDO, we've done it in the past, this. They always have something negative to say, which I find most appalling, because I tell them, look, if you all move away, what happened? So these are my personal opinion, not that of Atlantic Discourse, So I think that NIDO has to be the umbrella body for all those bodies. They have to show leadership, whether it's Edo Association, Yoruba, there has to be something all-inclusive. Because for Nigeria, there's really no time, actually. There's really, really, really no time. And I think one of the things we're suffering back in Nigeria is that we do not have quality leadership. And like Professor Patutomi said, it's not the ethnic issue or the religious issue. It's actually failure of leadership. Now, to get the requisite leaders on to the top is where I think the problem really is. So I think for NIDO, a lot still has to be done. I think, like you said, it's a fantastic vehicle. It is the right vehicle, considering how it's structured. But until things are followed the way it should be, from the rudiments, from the foundation, are well done, it might not serve the purpose it's supposed to serve. So I agree with you 100%. But I know you're involved in so many other things apart from NIDO. You have your initiative and all that. I know you're doing a lot with Pastor Ito. Can you enlighten us on what you're doing with Pastor Ito, all your other NGOs, and how you intend to help Nigeria with those?
So I'll speak on the two that I'm working with Pastor Itwa on. He's the president of Tri-Africa Empowerment Foundation, which we also call the Africa Leadership Group. And without running off on what the mission, vision of the organization is, but the intent is really to help promote responsible, ethical, accountable leaders. And how do we do that? It's not by talking about it. It's actually by acting on it, by empowering citizens with the information that they need to be able to make informed decisions when it comes to these leaders, by building leaders within all of us, by empowering each of us to understand that we are an integral part of the solution to Nigeria's problem, and not leaving it for the other people to do. So on NLS, which you and I were talking about, so this is a weekly virtual town hall meeting. It's called the Nigeria Leadership Series. Pastor Itwa hosts it. And every Thursday at 5 p.m. Nigerian time, we bring different thought leaders to have conversation around critical issues, national issues. Last week, for example, we had security. We had someone, a scholar on the security, to talk about the security challenges, to help us understand where we are coming from, what the issues are, and what's the next step, the way forward for the security, to address the security issues. So we take this with different sectors, and this has been happening every Thursday unfailingly, except during the holidays when we break between Christmas and New Year. But every Thursday we have that. And we also have an opportunity, we call it the open mic session on this same Thursday virtual town hall, where we all speak and, rub minds together on the way forward. So it's building community. We are in this together. Let's be informed. And another initiative we have, a few more initiatives we have under the Tri-Africa Empowerment Foundation, which is also called the Africa Leadership Group, is SOLAG, School of Leadership and Governance. And under School of Leadership and Governance, we have the Citizens Responsibility Campaign. And I'm using the word campaign as opposed to course. We graduated our first cohort August of last year. We had a 6-week 6-week program where every week, for 2 hours a week, we kind of go through the Constitution, your role as a citizen, what do you need to know? We had some guest speakers from the Electoral College, even from fiscal responsibility, transparency, to really get citizens involved in the affairs of Nigeria. You can't make changes if you are not in the know. So that's one of the things that we started to do, and we're starting this campaign. Constitution, if you're in America here, it's like from the age of 5, you know what the Constitution says, right? You know what your constitutional rights are, but how many Nigerians really know what our Constitution, what it says, what our role is, what our rights are? How can we even effect change? So that's on that end. Then we have the Ito Olajide Godalo Real Responsible, Ethical, Accountable Leaders mentorship program, where we mentors with integrity, leaders, tried and true leaders with integrity, veterans, can also help mentor the younger generation of what it is to be a real leader, the real responsible, ethical, and accountable leader. We have that. And then we have what we're calling the PM Squad, Army Project Manager. So I'm very passionate about project management. And I see that is important, across the sector. And we graduated a group of NYC students last, I think it was October. And it's incredible what these young people are doing. They're basically running our youth engagement program now because they were empowered with leadership. So we are not telling them you're leaders, you are empowering them, you're giving them the skill sets they need to be leaders, to be organized, to review, to have a plan of how they are going to implement their projects, and also how they're going to measure the results of those projects. So those young folks are really empowered, and some of us can sit back and watch them take this on. So those are some of the things that we're working on. Then we have the Diaspora pillar, which you are aware of, part of really how do we bridge the gap between the diaspora and those in Nigeria. And we want to also step in and help support the diaspora, right? Because their challenges, maybe whether it is opening an account, well, everybody can open an account now, but we've had a lot of diasporas that have been burned, maybe because they didn't have the right information about their investment or about the regulations. So we want to kind of serve as a middleman between the diasporas and Nigerians to help them facilitate, whether it's transitioning home, whether it's doing business at home, but give them resources, provide those resources that will support their success. So that's one thing that we're working on. Then this community development program, we're talking about that, is another thing we're working on. How do we work with the local governments, all 774 local governments, to see what the needs are, partner with them. It's a lot, but this is Pastor Ito's vision. He's the president of the organization, and he's very passionate about it. And I think his passion is infectious because we are all running with that vision. So there's a lot that we're doing, and more we're bringing people on board, and they are engaged with us. So that's just some of the things that we are doing as an organization. Rebuild Nigeria initiative, the one you mentioned, in which I am the executive director, and Pastor Ito is the president as well. was really set up to have this, and Konisweke is the vice president, to have, how do we bring all these dissenting voices to the table, to have a dialogue on the way forward, peaceful resolution, understand what the issues are. And I think at one point, we talked about having a national day of forgiveness. What is our issue? Why is there so much division? Why some, and I don't want to use political leaders, but why our differences being weaponized against us? Why is it being used against us? So let's have those conversations. Let's be informed and let's resolve some of these issues and start to build unity, national issues as national identity. So that's what Nigerians Rebuild Nigeria initiative is set up for. And we had a few peace dialogues, similar to NLS, where we started to talk about issues, but we're going back to the drawing table to recalibrate our strategy and see how we can bring more people to the table to have those conversations.
Wow, you've been very busy, very, very busy. I can attest to that. I know I can assure you have a new partner in Atlanta Discuss.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you. And I will hold you to it too. Anyone who knows that I will hold you to it.
We don't make gallery statements, yeah. Because one of the things why we're doing what we're doing is for posterity, and we're not happy the way things are. And I've seen countries with lesser population, lesser requisite manpower, do extraordinary. Benin Republic just beside us. You'll be shocked at what Benin Republic has done under President Talon in the last few years. But that's not why we're here. I mean, I was going to ask you, there's a reason I asked the last question about what have you been doing with your time, because I have an idea of some of the things you're doing. So I'm going to solution proper now. Because now that I have told our viewers what you've been doing, that means you are eminently qualified to provide solution on the way out for Nigeria. What do you think we can do? I know from what you've been doing, it shows you are hitting it from the foundation. Your approach is not textural in shape or form. You're looking at the youth, you're looking at the empowerment, you're doing a lot of enlightenment. That's a lot. So how do you think, not just in the immediate, but in the immediate and in the future, how do you think Nigeria can go out of this? For example, I've had guests say, "Oh, we should put pressure on our legislators. They'll make it different." I've had some erudite scholars say we need a political discussion whether we want to live together, especially when we talk about tribe. It doesn't look like we cannot overlook that tribe at all. So, what do you think is the way out of all this?
I think we need a plan.
We need a plan. What kind of plan? We need to sit down. Who should sit down and plan?
We, Nigerians, you see, I think we are all a piece of the puzzle. And I think we all need to find our place. We need to find our niche and fit into it and not wait for the other person to do it. We talked about what we are doing as an organization, and we're always looking to collaborate because we know that we can't do it on our own. So when I mean that we need a plan, what is the plan for Nigeria in the next 2 years? What is the security plan for us to get out of this quagmire that we're in, to stop the bleeding? Because, they're all interconnected. Everything is related one way or another. So we have to have those plans like every other country in the world does. This is our projection for the next 2 years. This is what we're going to tackle first. And if we tackle security, then we can address the issues with agriculture. If we tackle infrastructure, then we can address the economy. It has to be systematic. Nigerians are the most intelligent people in the world. Mm-hmm. But I think we also lose sight of the very basic. We lose sight of the very basic. Everything is such high level. Let's bring it down to the basic and begin to break it down, building blocks, block by block. Mm-hmm. I'm not, you've had people like Professor Tomi, those are like scholars. I'm not, I'm just an ordinary person.
Well, you are. You are. We know you are.
Point of view. So let's just go back to the basic. What is our plan? How do we implement this plan? If we have a plan, then we do a critical analysis of the plan. And then how are we going to measure our success? What are the resources we need? for us to get to where we need to get to. You know, someone was saying the other, I think on one of our platforms last week, the gentleman that spoke, Elder Fagbemi that spoke, was like, even the population, what is the true population of Nigerians? We need to have, well, as close to the facts as possible for us to come up with like strategic action of how we are going to tackle this. It's very high level. Let's bring it down to the basics. Begin to look at it block by block. And I don't think it's that complicated. He said something, and someone at the virtual town hall yesterday, that security problem can be resolved within 42 days, 6 weeks, and everybody was in how. But let's look at the plan. If you have the plan, let's see what is it going to take to make this work. So what is that going to take? Does that mean going to the legislators? Is it, if you call a national conference, who's going to be at the table? Who are the stakeholders that will make the decision? So there are those basic things that we need to look at in resolving some of these issues. And I think we don't pay attention to those little details. And I think that's probably why we're where we are. We need to start paying attention to the minute details.
So you agree to a very large extent our problem is failure of leadership?
Across the board, in all areas, not just the political leaders. Leadership, we as a people, yes.
From the home, from the church,
from the
everything,
home, from the street,
social,
from the
cultural
school,
group.
every aspect of the society is leadership.
So you think that if, for example, every Nigerian just start doing the right thing, it's like a sovereign national conference in itself,
Yes.
Stop stealing.
Reorientation. It's reorientation. You have to, there are people that don't bribe. I would rather suffer than bribe because it's my value. That's my core value. Integrity. Let's go back to promoting some of those core values, those things. Let's take a stand against injustice and unrighteousness. Let's start taking our personal stand.
The we that should do this, the way the third world countries work, it's always the government that has total control of how the machinery of, they more or less have the power of life and death, if I have to put it in that way, So how do we, if let's say a negligible percentage, 5,000 people out of 200 million, we're not even sure they got population, or let's even say 100,000 people start doing things the way it should be done. Do you think that can work? Do you think there's a trickle-down effect? Because I'm sure there are over 100,000 Nigerians that are doing the right thing. I'm very, very sure about that, but they don't get elected. They don't get into politics. Our votes don't count. Nothing works, I know Nigerians in at least 2 countries that are helping with the power situation in those countries, and they're holding very high position. Now we don't have power.
So let me ask you a question. The government.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So, and again, permit me for being very simple in my analysis. Those that changed the INEC result, was it the president and his people that went themselves, or were they Nigerians? The thugs that were beating people and disenfranchising people from voting, who were they? They're Nigerians. Are they people from your neighborhood? Are they people from even your family? The policeman that is going to go out, the policemen or the soldiers that shot at innocent Nigerians during NSAS, who are they? Was it Buhari that came from Aso Rock that gave the orders? These are Nigerians. So if those soldiers looked at these innocent Nigerians and looked at them that they were exercising their civic rights, their civil rights, would you shoot at innocent students as a Nigerian? So when we're looking at it, it's like we have to take responsibility. So that soldier that is shooting at innocent citizens also has his own orders that if they violate the law, so he also broke the law because he didn't follow what his own laws or orders are, because these were people that didn't violate your law. So you violated your law by shooting them. This is what I mean by Nigerians. It's all Nigerians everywhere. From the custom officer that expects me to bribe him because I'm taking Gary from Nigeria back to home base, to the police. No, those are even to the one that I have to get my passport, bribe. And now let's even talk about the bankers, which I personally think are the ones that caused the problem in Nigeria. But I don't have any economic degree to back my analysis up on that one.
You don't have to. The truth is the truth.
I heard the other day that, God rest the gentleman's soul, gave 1 billion naira interest free to a church to build a building. Yet, the person who wants to start a manufacturing plant will get that same 1 billion at what, 20-30% interest rate? How does that work? You can't get loan for 10%. You want to start a manufacturing plant, but yet you can give a church 1 billion interest free. And, God is going to smile at you for doing that. Yes, he probably will. I don't know, but I think he will smile at me for empowering and loving my neighbor and trying to make life better for my fellow human beings. That's my thoughts. So,
wow. One more question for you. I won't forgive myself. I don't ask you this. Okay. I know you're a patriot. You don't like the way Nigeria is. You don't like the way the politics is being managed and all that. But in future, if for some reason maybe we have a conference, things, a sovereign national conference, things are being recalibrated, you see that the machinery of government, the machinery of state is well lubricated, not as rudderless as it is today. I am being called, Jumoke, please, we need you to help us manage a NIDCOM or Nigeria Orientation Agency or possibly, okay, you're a civil engineer, you're PMP, okay, can you serve Nigeria in future if you're called upon and you think the environment is conducive?
I serve Nigeria every day, and I will serve Nigeria. I don't need to be called to serve Nigeria. I don't know that I need an office to serve. Everyone who knows me that I've been trying to move back to Nigeria for the past 20 years. Every year I'm moving back to Nigeria and I actually moved back to Nigeria at one point. So going to Nigeria is not a problem for me. It's home. My heart and soul is in Nigeria. And, but I don't know, but I was always served. I think I think I was just called, I was born. It's part of what I'm called to do, to serve Nigeria. It's not something that I wished upon myself. I think it's a calling. And, people ask me, okay, how do you do so much? It's effortless. It's effortless because, again, it's part of what I was called to do. So I have the grace, abundant grace to do it. If I'm not doing Nigeria, I'm not myself. I cannot be at peace if I'm not doing Nigeria or like really advocating for Nigeria. So I go to Nigeria often and I push for as much as I can in my own little way, contribute to what I can.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. I think that's a yes, and a yes with a patriotic semblance and gesture. So thank you. So I think it's important to thank you for all you do. I mean, you've said so much. There's nobody that's listened to all that you have said today that won't be impressed. For those of us that know what you're doing, we are very happy with it. Please keep doing it. You're a natural, so I know you'll never give up. For those that are hearing about it for the first time, I'm sure they are also very impressed. And it's a clarion call for others to join in every way possible. The ALG is on every Friday. We're going
every Thursday at 5 p.m.
Every Thursday, at 5 p.m. West African time. Yes. Then we're going to put the link there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
For people to join. You hold me on to it. Atlanta Discuss will partner in anything you do. We believe very much in such. One of the things we are also trying to do is to look for people of like minds, to make sure that there's a focal point, especially when it comes to Project Nigeria, Project West Africa, Project Nigeria, Project Third World, I mean, if you look at what's happening in Argentina now, the president came in inheriting the most horrible Argentine economy in a long time. And I mean, they're already making progress. The man flies economy or is it business class, and it has cut the cost of governance, which I think is where our problem really is in Nigeria, because those are leading us today. They will find it very hard. They will struggle to change the status quo, the situation of things, if they do not lead by example. So, Jumoke, thank you for coming to Atlanta to discuss. I'm sure you're going to come back very, very soon because it's obvious that you have a strategic role to play in the future of Africa and Nigeria strategically. We appreciate you. And to our loyal listeners, thank you. Antarctica, thank you. Asia, thank you. Africa, thank you. Europe, North America, South America, thank you, everybody. Next week, we're going to come back to you with State of the Nation, episode 3. We're still on Nigeria. Jumoke, thank you once again for coming.
Thank you so much for having me and for all you do. And I think I always shy away from being thanked because we're not doing enough. So if we do 10 times what we're doing, it's still not enough until Nigeria becomes that nation we're looking for. There is no thanks. Thank you.
I honestly think we're on the verge. How, when, I don't know, but I actually think
we are
on the verge. We are on our way. Thank you. God bless you. Bye, everybody.
See you next week. Have a good one. Thank you for having me.